Welcome to our Reality Coffee Break series. In our last video on Realweb, we discussed installing and configuring Realweb and the components that need to be installed. Now we will construct a Realweb program and demonstrate running this program. The majority of routines in the Realweb API are used to construct an HTML page that is returned for display in the browser. This is done by adding code to the appropriate Realweb output buffer, depending upon the type of HTML output. There are 4 output buffers: a buffer to generate HTML directly, routines that require HTML to be placed within head section of the HTML document, routines that directly generate JavaScript code, and an error buffer if errors are encountered at runtime during the execution of any of the Realweb API routines. In order to construct a valid HTML document, the routines must be called in the correct order. The minimum necessary to construct an empty document is a call to start HTML page, followed by a call to end page. So the minimum Realweb application would be the following: an include of the Realweb definitions, a start and end page calls. So let us create a simple Hello World Realweb application. I will first log on to the Reality database and log over to the account which to create this program. So here's the application. In addition to the start and end page routines, I will use the Realweb API RWPut to place the string Hello World into the Realweb output buffer. Now that we have our program, we can go ahead and access this from a web browser. To do this, we will enter a URL to access the program we want to run. The components of the URL start with the location of the web server, and depending on how the web server application was set up, HTTP TCP port 8080. We are using Apache Tomcat mentioned in the previous Realweb video. Next is the designation of our Reality servlet, which handles the connection into the Reality database. After that, we specify the section name, Lucy in this case. This was previously set up when we configured Realweb and defines the connection details into the Reality database. Then the last part of the URL is the program to run, Hello World. Start a web browser and enter the URL to run the program. When we try to run the program, a message is returned, Hello World not allowed. This is because the program has not been enabled. Before a Realweb subroutine can be called by the Reality servlet, it must be enabled. This prevents inappropriate subroutines from being called. To enable a subroutine, create an item with the same name in the file realweb.security. The item should have a single attribute containing the letter V. We can now go ahead and run the Hello World program. Now let's write a program that does a little work. So here is our program. We're now going to list out a file and display this listing on our web page. We can add some formatting commands so that it displays nicely on our screen, but the listing is done with just 2 commands. We will run perform statement to list our file with an English statement, then convert this listing to Realweb output buffer so that it can be displayed. So note our 2 lines: a perform statement to list our file, and a call to display this output. Now we have our program, we'll add it to the Realweb security file. We can now run this program from our browser. So now you can see how easily you can write a Realweb application to access your data within a Reality database to display from the web browser. Finally, I want to mention a little bit about troubleshooting your Realweb application. There are commands getBuff, setBuff, displayed parameters to display the Realweb output and input buffers. RWPut can be very useful in troubleshooting. Another very useful tool is the rwdebug command. This can be issued from TCL to run the Realweb application, so before even trying to run your program from the web browser, you can test it out using the command from TCL. Let's go ahead and run Hello World command from rwdebug. You're prompted to enter the subroutine. We'll go ahead and enter Hello World. You're then prompted to enter parameters, if any. Prompted to enter cookie name, if any. Prompted to run the subroutine. Prompted to print the output control string. If you enter yes, then it will output Realweb control string containing any system parameters. Print the output buffer. We will go ahead and say yes to this. This will display the HTML code. And finally print the cookie. So you can see this tool can be very useful in developing your Realweb applications. This completes the steps to creating Realweb applications. I hope you find this helpful, and we hope to see you in the next Coffee Break series.